She kissed a stranger to keep her ex from seeing her cry. The stranger kissed back like he'd been waiting. Melinda Russel came to Seoul to restore art, not to fall apart in a ballroom. But her ex invited her to his engagement party for one reason: to watch her hurt in front of everyone. "Did you come alone?" he asked, loud enough for the room to turn. So she did the one thing he never expected. She crossed the floor to the only man standing alone, a tall Korean man in black with ink curling up the side of his neck, took his lapel, and kissed him. She thought it was a lie that would last 10 seconds. She didn't know his name was Kang Tae-won. She didn't know they called him the White Tiger. And she didn't know that dozens of powerful people had just watched the most dangerous man in the city kiss a black woman back. The man everyone swore had no weakness to find. By the time she reached the door, a photograph was already spreading. By midnight, a car was already following her home. But what happens when a lie becomes the only truth that can keep her alive? Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Melinda checked the gift in her lap for the third time and told herself 20 minutes. In and out. The car slowed under a canopy of white flowers, and through the glass she could already see the ballroom breathing gold. Hundreds of small warm lights strung across the ceiling, like a sky someone had bought. She had almost not come. The invitation had arrived on thick cream paper, her name written by hand, and for 2 days, it sat on her counter like a dare. Daniel knew she would understand what it meant. He wanted her to see it. That was the whole point. She stepped out. The heels held, the black silk moved the way she needed it to. Inside, the room was full of the kind of people who measured you before they shook your hand. Investors, hotel families, men who laughed a half-second too late. A string quartet played something soft enough to ignore. Waiters carried champagne in tight, practiced circles. Melinda took one glass and did not drink it. She set the wrapped box on the gift table, adjusted the ribbon, and turned to find the shortest path back to the door. Daniel found her first. "Melinda," he said her name like a discovery, both hands out. "You came." "I said I would." He looked good, and he knew it. Navy tuxedo, silver watch, that smile that had once made her forgive things she should not have forgiven. Behind him, a woman drifted closer in pale champagne silk, poised, careful, her eyes doing quiet math. "This is Soyeon." Daniel's hand went to the small of the woman's back. "Soyeon, this is Melinda, an old friend." An old friend. 3 years, reduced to 2 words. "Congratulations," Melinda said, and meant most of it. Soyeon inclined her head. She was gracious. That was almost worse. Daniel let a silence stretch, the way he always did before the thing he actually wanted to say. Then he tilted his head, all warmth, all poison. "Did you come alone?" The question was not a question. He said it a shade too loud, and 2 couples near the pillar turned. A woman in green lifted her chin to watch. Melinda felt the room shift its weight toward her, curious, already deciding what her face would do. "I hope you found someone too," Daniel added, softer now, gentle as a knife wrapped in a napkin. There it was. The small cruelty he had paid for a whole ballroom to witness. Melinda smiled. She had learned to smile through worse. But her pulse was loud, and she knew, that if she stood here one more second, her eyes would betray her, and he would have exactly the picture he came for, the one where she is still the woman who wanted him. She would not give it to him. She turned, scanning, fast, the way she scanned a room of paintings for the one that was real. Faces, smiles. groups closed like fists. And then, near the far end of the bar, standing alone, a man, tall, Korean, in a black suit with the first button open. He held a glass of whiskey he had clearly never touched. He was not talking to anyone, and no one dared drift into the space around him, as if the air there cost more. He was watching the room the way she wished she could, like none of it could reach him. He was watching her. Melinda did not think. Thinking was the thing that had kept her 3 years too long. She crossed the ballroom. The gold lights slid over her shoulders. She stopped in front of him, close, and the noise of the party pressed in behind her like a held breath. Up close he was worse. Steady dark eyes, a small scar near the jaw, something at the open collar, the edge of black ink curling up the side of his neck. "Please," she said, barely a whisper, "don't ask questions." She took the lapel of his jacket in one hand and kissed him. For one full second, nothing. His mouth did not move. His body did not move. She had made a terrible mistake, and she knew it, and it was too late to be anything but committed to it. Then his gaze cut past her cheek, to Daniel, across the room, watching. Something changed in the man. A hand settled at her waist, unhurried, sure. He answered the kiss like he had decided to. Not desperate, not for show, just certain. When Melinda finally pulled back, her face burning, the apology was already climbing her throat. "I'm sorry," she breathed. "I'm so sorry, I don't even—" But the man was not looking at her. He looked over her shoulder, straight at Daniel, and spoke in an even, unbothered voice, loud enough to carry. "You took your time." Daniel's face drained of color. Melinda blinked. She did not understand. It was the wrong reaction. Daniel should have been smug, or amused, or nothing at all. Instead, he looked like a man who had just recognized a sound in the dark. And the room had gone quiet. Not party quiet, silent. The quartet still played, but the talking had stopped, the way a market goes still when a certain car pulls up. Melinda became aware of movement at the edges. Men, 3 of them, 4, dark suits, calm faces, drifting into new positions around the bar without hurry and without being told. One near the service door, one at the foot of the stairs, one a polite 2 steps behind her, hands folded, eyes everywhere. They were not moving toward the couple. They were moving to protect it. She turned back to the stranger, her borrowed courage curdling into something cold. His hand was still at her waist, warm, steady, and he looked down at her now with the faint, unreadable interest of a man examining a coin that had landed on its edge. "Who are you?" she managed. He did not answer that. Instead, very quietly, only for her, he asked, "Do you know what you just did?" She didn't. But every silent man in that room did. The hallway outside the ballroom smelled of lilies and cold marble. Melinda walked fast, clutch pressed to her chest, and she had almost reached the elevators when his voice stopped her. "You really don't know who I am." She turned. He stood a few steps back, hands loose at his sides, in no rush at all. That was the thing about him, the stillness. Daniel filled a room by talking. This man filled it by not needing to. "Should I?" she said. Something flickered at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. It was gone before she could name it. "I'm sorry about in there," she went on, the words coming too fast now. "My ex, the engagement. He wanted everyone to watch me fall apart, and I didn't want to give him that. So I did something stupid. I used you. I don't even know your name, and I used you. And I am so sorry." "Kang Tae-won," he said. "Melinda Russel." He repeated it once, quietly, like he was filing it somewhere it would not be lost. "Go home, Miss Russell. Tonight, straight home." She would have. She was already turning when a second man came down the hall with the clipped stride of someone carrying bad news. Dark gray suit, a scar through one eyebrow, an earpiece coiled at his collar. He did not look at her. He held out a phone to Tae-won. Tae-won looked. His face did not change, but the temperature of him did. "How long ago?" he asked. 20 minutes, the man said. "It's already in 3 of the private groups. Someone at the party sent it." Melinda leaned in without meaning to. On the screen was a photograph. The bar, the gold lights, a woman in black silk with her hand on a man's lapel, kissing him. Her, them. "It's just a photo," she said. "It's embarrassing, I know, but it's a party. People kiss at parties." Tae-won handed the phone back. He looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time she saw something under the calm, a calculation running fast and dark. "Park Ji-ho," he said, nodding at the other man. "My head of security." "Security," she repeated. "Why does an investor need?" "You didn't kiss an investor." The floor seemed to tilt a half degree. "There are people," Tae-won said, choosing each word, "who have spent years looking for one thing about me, one person I would not want harmed. They never found it because it doesn't exist." His eyes stayed on hers. "Tonight, in front of everyone, you handed them a photograph that says it does." Melinda's mouth was dry. "Then tell them the truth. It was nothing. 10 seconds. I'll say it myself." "They won't believe the truth. It's less useful to them." He said it simply, without drama, which made it worse. "You can't go home alone tonight." And there it was, the thing she had promised herself she was done with. A man deciding where she could go. Her spine straightened before her mouth caught up. "I kissed you," she said. "I didn't sign away my freedom." Jiho's eyebrows lifted a fraction. She got the sense very few people spoke to Kang Tae-won like that and lived to see his reaction. His reaction was a slow blink and something that might have been respect. "Then at least take a car," he said. She took a taxi. She was proud of that for exactly 11 minutes. Then, watching the mirror out of habit, she noticed the same black sedan take the same 3 turns she did, staying 2 cars back, patient, unhurried. Not Tae-won's. His men drove like they were pouring water. This one drove like it was hunting. Her building's garage was underlit and empty. She was reaching for her keys when 2 men stepped out from between the parked cars. Not fast, not masked. That was the frightening part. They were in no hurry. "Miss Russell," the taller one said, and her name in his mouth was a violation. "What is your relationship with Kang Tae-won?" "I don't have one," she said. "I don't even—" "That's not what the picture says." He reached for her arm. He never closed his hand. A shape moved out of the dark behind him, and then there were other men, Tae-won's men, and the garage became a brief, ugly scuffle of grunts and shoe leather that was over almost before she understood it had begun. The 2 hunters were walked backward into the shadows. Ji-ho appeared at her elbow, steady, checking her with a glance. "You're not hurt," he said. It was not a question, but she answered anyway. "No." Tae-won arrived 4 minutes later. He came down the ramp on foot, fast, and when he reached her, he did not touch her. But his jaw was tight, and something in his eyes was close to fury. Not at her, at himself. "I should have seen this," he said, half to her, half to no one. "I should have known they'd move tonight." "Why did you send them?" she asked. "Your men?" "I told you no." "Because I don't always listen to the wrong answer." She should have been angry. Instead, standing in the concrete cold with her heart still slamming, she felt something she had not felt in a very long time, the specific, disarming safety of a man who had put himself between her and a door. "Why did you kiss me back?" she asked, in there, You could have pushed me away. You could have laughed. You made it real. He was quiet, a beat too long. Whatever he was deciding, he decided against it. Get some things, he said. You're not staying here. He turned to go, and Ji-ho fell in beside him, and Melinda stood alone under the flickering light, with the strangest suspicion settling into her chest. That the man walking away had a real answer to her question, and that the real answer had nothing to do with strategy at all. She agreed to the protection on one condition, and she said it before she said good morning. I keep working. I'm not a bird you put in a cage until it's safe outside. I have clients, I have a life, and I'm not spending it behind those men in the hall. Tae-won considered her over a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking. Two of my people go where you go. One, and they wait outside the room. He almost argued. He didn't. One, he said. That was how it started. Not with fireworks, but with terms. The days that followed taught her him in pieces. He never sat with his back to a door. He slept badly, or barely. She heard him moving through the apartment at hours that had no name. He knew the name of every driver, every guard, the woman who cleaned the floor below, and he used them, always, like the names mattered. When he caught her flinching at the men stationed in her living room, he sent them to the corridor without a word, and never mentioned it again. He watched her too. She could feel it. He noticed she talked to the doorman the same way she talked to the gallery owners who wired her 6 figures. He noticed she laughed when she was nervous, a quick, bright thing she couldn't stop. He noticed the way she went quiet whenever her phone lit with Daniel's name, and how she never picked up. Daniel had started calling. At first she ignored it. Then he ambushed her in person, at a hotel where she was authenticating a set of restored screens for the lobby. He was waiting by the elevators when she came out. You need to stay away from him, Daniel said. No hello. You don't get to tell me anything anymore. Melinda, he lowered his voice, glancing around. You don't know who he really is. Maybe not, she stepped past him, but now I know exactly who you are. He caught her arm. She looked at his hand until he let go. I made a mistake, he said, and for once the salesman was gone from his voice. Letting you go. I've been thinking about it since the party, since I saw you with him. That's not regret, Daniel. That's competition. She left him there. Across the lobby, half in shadow, Tae-won stood by a column where she hadn't seen him, and she understood he'd heard some of it. He didn't come over, but something in how he looked at her had changed, like he'd expected her to be running from Daniel, straight into him, and had just watched her run from both. The truth came apart 2 nights later. Ji-ho laid it out on the table like a hand of cards. The photo hadn't come from Dong-hyuk's people. It had been taken inside the engagement party and pushed out by someone connected to the Han family's business. A favor traded, a door left open. And the man who had cracked that door without understanding what was behind it was Daniel. He's been chasing contracts, Ji-ho said. New money for the wedding, for the life he's selling Soyeon. To get them, he took meetings he shouldn't have, introductions from people who work for Lee Dong-hyuk. Melinda sat very still. So Daniel, she couldn't finish it. Didn't know, Ji-ho said. Doesn't know now, but the men he shook hands with saw the photo, recognized the woman standing next to a Kangwon boss, and made their own use of it. The room felt too small. She had kissed a stranger to keep her ex from seeing her heartbreak, and the ex's greed had handed her, gift-wrapped, to the one man in Seoul who wanted a weapon against Tae-won. Every thread pulled back to a party she never wanted to attend. I did this, she said. No, Tae-won said from the doorway. I did. The moment I answered your kiss. She wanted to believe him. She almost did. She was still holding on to that, when the world closed over her head. It happened on a Thursday, in daylight, on a street she'd walked 100 times. Her guard was 3 steps behind when a van slid to the curb, and the daylight and the ordinary street were exactly what made it work. No one expects it at noon. A hand over her mouth, the clean chemical smell. The last thing she saw was a pedestrian glancing over and deciding it wasn't his business. She woke in a cold room with a concrete floor and a single caged bulb. Her wrists were bound in front of her, not cruelly, which frightened her more than rope. Cruelty would have meant they wanted to hurt her. This was worse. This was patience. A heavy-set man with silver-streaked hair sat across from her in a folding chair, a thin, unlit cigarette turning slowly between 2 fingers. He looked at her the way a collector looks at a piece he already owns. "Miss Russell," his voice was almost gentle, "do you know how long I have looked for you?" "You don't want me," she said. Her mouth was dry. "You've got it wrong. I'm nobody to him." Dong-hyuk smiled, unbothered, certain. "Everyone said that about you. No wife, no children, no mistress. The tiger with nothing to lose." He leaned forward. "And then you kissed him in front of the whole city. A man like that doesn't kiss back for nothing. It was a mistake. Then he will pay a very small price to correct it." He rose, smoothing his jacket. "And if he pays it, the information I need, the deal that keeps me alive, then it was never a mistake at all. It was the best thing that ever happened to me." He walked to the door. "Rest," he said, not unkindly. "This is going to take exactly as long as it takes him to decide what you're worth." The bulb hummed, the door locked. And Melinda, alone on the cold floor, understood there was no clever thing to say, no client to charm, no exit she could talk her way through. For the first time, there was no way out that she could see. Melinda counted. Not minutes, she'd lost those. She counted the things a room tells you if you've spent your life reading objects. The way sound carried told her the ceilings were high. The damp told her they were low, below street level. Twice a day, a train shuddered somewhere close. Then a long horn. Not a subway, a freight line. Water, then. A yard near water. When the quiet man brought her a paper cup, she thanked him by name after she heard the others use it, and she watched where his eyes went, and what he did with his hands, and which door he never left unlocked long. She was not going to sit on a floor and wait to learn what she was worth. They fed her from foam containers stamped with a shipping company's Fox logo. She memorized it. When they let her use the corner sink, she worked her earring loose and scratched 3 thin lines into the underside of the metal shelf, a mark, in case anyone ever thought to look, and because doing something was the only thing keeping her whole. On the second night, Dong-hyuk came back to gloat, and she made him talk. It wasn't hard. Men who think they've already won love to explain how. "You really believe he'll trade a whole organization for me," she said. "I believe he'll trade it for the idea of you." He turned the unlit cigarette. "Love makes powerful men stupid. That's the only weakness that never fails." "You made a mistake," she said. He raised a brow, amused. "Which one?" "Thinking that being loved by someone makes that person weak." He laughed at that. He shouldn't have. Because while he laughed, she was watching the wall of crates behind him, reading the shipping labels, the Fox logo, the pier number stenciled in red, and she had already decided that if she ever got one chance to make noise, she would make it near the drums marked with the flame symbol, where even these careful men stepped wide. Her chance came when they moved her. A cart, a corridor. A moment when the quiet man fumbled the outer lock and the others clustered to help. Melinda drove her shoulder into a stack of the flame-marked drums, and they went down in a rolling, booming avalanche of metal that filled the whole yard with sound. Shouts, boots, a siren of confusion. It was all Tae-won needed. He had been 3 buildings away for an hour, following a shipping Fox logo Ji-ho had traced through a pier number, waiting for the one thing he could not manufacture, a location he could be certain of. The noise gave it to him. The drums told him which building, and Melinda's 3 scratched lines under a shelf, found by his first man through the door, told him which room. When the door finally came open, it was him. The famous stillness was gone. He crossed the room fast, dropped to a knee in front of her, and his hands came up to her face, not to hold her, to check her, tilting her chin, her cheek, her wrists, reading her body for damage the way she read paintings for truth. "I'm okay," she said. "Tae-won, I'm okay." His hands were shaking. This man who never moved a muscle he didn't mean to. His hands were shaking against her jaw. She caught one of them, held it still between both of hers. "Were you afraid?" she asked. He looked at her, and for once he did not decide against the true answer. "I've been afraid," he said, "since the moment you kissed me." Not because the kiss made enemies. She understood that now. He'd been afraid since the bar, since the gold lights, since a woman in black silk took his lapel, and for the length of a lie, made him wish it were the truth. The untouchable man had not been broken by force. He'd been undone by wanting something, which was the one thing he'd spent his whole life refusing to do. The rest was fast, and cold, and thorough. Tae-won did not need to fire a shot to end Dong-hyuk. He ended him the way the tiger always ended things, quietly, completely. What Ji-ho had assembled from the pier, the shipping front, the traded favor at the Han party, went not to Taiwan's men, but to the authorities. Wrapped so tightly, there was no thread left for Dong-hyuk to pull. In a week, the rival lost the front, the yards, the deal that kept him breathing. The Han family found their name attached to a leak they could not explain, and So-yeon, reading it all at last, understood exactly what kind of man had asked her to marry him. Daniel came to find Melinda one more time. The engagement was over. He said it like she was supposed to be glad. "If I'd asked you to marry me back then," he said, "would you have stayed?" "Yes," she said. For 1 second, his face opened with hope. "And today," she went on, "I know that would have been a mistake." She didn't say it cruelly. She didn't need to. She walked out, and she did not look back. And the not looking cost her nothing at all. Weeks later, there was another event. Real this time, no lie to hide behind. Melinda stood beside Tae-won as photographers noticed her, cameras turning, and old fear tightened her chest. "What do we say," she asked, "if they ask who I am?" For years this man had let no one know who occupied space in his life. He looked at her, and the cameras waited. "The truth," he said. "And what's the truth?" He took her hand, in front of all of them. "That you're the woman who walked into my life without asking permission." She laughed, the bright, nervous laugh he knew now. "Technically, I asked. I told you not to ask questions." And there, in front of dozens of people who had spent years insisting the white tiger had no heart to find, Kang Tae-won smiled. The first kiss happened because Melinda wanted to pretend her heart wasn't broken. The second, and everyone after, happened because, for the first time in a long time, she didn't have to pretend anything at all. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever done something reckless just to keep someone from seeing your heartbreak? Have you ever stayed too long, trying to prove you deserve to be chosen, before you learned to choose yourself? And if a stranger had seen you at your lowest, would they have seen weakness, or the strongest thing about you? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, hidden truth, and dangerous love, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.